Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. And here with me, I have Rick Pedersen. We haven't talked to Rick in like 10 years. And the last in- and the last interview we did with him, we had some fun. We actually had some very fun events we did together too. We did what did we do? We went to a burial site, didn't we?
Yeah, we went to out in South Surrey. We went and did the Victory Memorial Cemetery when we were doing the Paranormal 101 course, and it was the practical part of the course. It was day two, and so you got to go out and use various pieces of equipment and see what you could find.
It was fascinating. You can check it out. It's still there, the YouTube of that event, and it's quite fun to watch. Um, Tell us, Rick, for those who don't know who you are, tell them a little bit about yourself. Tell them about your history and who you are and where you grew up and your background. And then we can go into what you do now.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I just turned 53 back on the 13th. So 53 years old. I'm a psychic medium. Been doing it professionally, commercially, however you want to refer to it. I've been doing it now for about 10 years, where it's been a paid gig for me actually doing readings for people. But I've been using my abilities pretty much all my life since I was a child. The things that I like doing, I loved helping people out. So paranormal investigation work really goes hand in glove with that for me. It's when we get people who message you who are having issues in their homes and they're not feeling safe in their homes and they don't know who to turn to.
Right.
And I swear to goodness, if you play Ghostbusters theme right now, I'm going to lose it. Who you gonna call? I tell you, that's the funniest part about this. I mean, I've been doing this for so many years, and every single interview I think I've ever done, somebody has queued up the Ghostbusters theme song. It's like, no more. But yeah, it's a wonderful feeling to be able to go in there and help people understand sort of what's happening in their homes. I do caution people, if you're going to look to bring in a paranormal investigation team, uh, please find somebody who has a reputable, ethical medium that is actually able to tell what's happening. You're not just relying on the equipment. Unfortunately, what typically happens in those settings, if you're bringing in a paranormal investigation team, they kind of come in and poke, stir
Right.
things up, and then they go, yep, you got something, or no, you don't have something. But they don't offer, we'll call it a remedy of the
Right.
problem. And so it's very important if you do have activities happening in your house. It doesn't always mean that it's paranormal in nature. It can be a great many different things that you're experiencing.
Right.
But I mean, I come in and we always sort of do the debunking process first, trying to find out what could it possibly be linking to, we'll call it real world affectations. And we check everything out to sort of rule out any of those potentials. And also when I'm doing the actual investigation, I start by doing a walk through the residence or the building or location,
Right.
and using what I call my spidey senses and see what I feel in the locations,
Yeah.
and then make notes as to, okay, we're getting activity in this room or in this location, et cetera. And sort of what we'll do is we'll try and push energies into that area so that it confines it, we'll call it.
Right.
And it makes doing the clearing a lot easier versus being dispersed through an entire building.
If it's all over the residence, then you can confine it to a specific room, for example, and then just have to deal with that room. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. It just, what you're doing is you're pushing energy and you're confining things into a small area. It makes it a lot more easy to bring to resolution.
Yeah, I can understand that. Okay, so let's not talk a little more about this subject matter. Let's go backwards a little bit and talk about, okay, before we can even talk about a medium and a psychic medium and this sort of phenomena, how does one decide who is the right medium or the right psychic to go to for this purpose? What qualities do they need to look for? And
Um,
because there's so many out there.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, there is. I mean, the second somebody says to you anything regarding fees, turn the other way and walk.
Wow.
There should not be fees for this, okay? And no disrespect to anybody. I understand that everybody has expenses and everybody needs to, you know, keep a roof over their head, etc. However, because we're talking, there's a very real difference, in my opinion, between doing a reading for somebody
Right.
and doing a clearing.
Right.
So a reading, you know, somebody could be coming to me for a reading to for entertainment purposes. They could be coming looking for answers as to what's going on in their world. They could be looking for connection to a loved one to get a message.
Hmm.
So those are very different things, and it's what I call optional.
Right.
Okay. And when it's happening in your house, it's not optional. This needs to get resolved because typically people are experiencing anxiety from it, stress, fear. It can be affecting relationships. It can affect children's fear factors, etc. So from that perspective, that's where I go. There's a real delineation to where you should be drawing the line for charging fees. The other thing too is that given the work, like for example, let's go from the mediumship side of things. When if I'm sitting here and I go, okay, Sharose, I've got, you know, your aunt here, you know, her name was, you know, Mary or whatever, and she's telling me about a very particular experience that happened to you when you were a child, and there, all these details line up as far as a memory that you would have that is very closely accurate. Um, that is tangible. Okay. You can actually sit there and go, oh my God, I can remember, yeah, when I was 7, this event happened or whatever. The difference is that when we go into a home and or a building or whatever, and we're saying, I've got a male spirit, you know, or a female spirit here, this is what I'm picking up on, or potentially we'll call it an entity. One term you'll very almost never hear.
What happened to you, David? Or I lost you. Hold on. You're sharing with us how someone can select the right medium, and the one thing you said was um, that if they're asking for fees, then to turn the other way. And you're elaborating on that whole subject matter. So I'll let you carry on now.
Thanks. Yeah, no. So basically, what I was saying is that doing a reading is tangible because there's typically going to be information or events that I can communicate to you that you'll go, boom, yes, I know this is what's happened. When we go into a location to do an investigation, I'm connecting with the spirit that could be linked to the property. It could be a previous owner. It could be a multitude of things. We could also be talking about a quote unquote entity. The one expression you won't hear me refer to almost ever is demonic. That is really a catch-all phrase that I really don't. I don't like. I don't respect it. I think that it's too easy to say that everything is demonic, and that just makes everything sound evil.
Okay.
You know, if we have to try to understand that there are different things out there that we could be encountering.
Yeah.
But when I'm bringing that through and I'm explaining to you what I'm picking up on, unless you have firsthand information about, let's say, for example, that it's a family home that's been in the family for 40 years or whatever, and I'm bringing through a spirit and we're going, okay, no, that's my uncle,
Right.
right? Then we can start to go, okay, now it's more tangible. Before that, it's not a tangible, and you're taking me at my word that what I'm experiencing is accurate.
Right.
And how do I justify a
Charging.
charge for that if it's not tangible, right?
I hear you.
And so, unfortunately, you know, you see a lot of people who will come in and they'll do their mumbo jumbo, whatever it is that they're going to do, and they tell you that they've done stuff, and it's just a load of hooey in many instances, and it actually is very bad for you know, people such as myself who are coming in and doing our best to help people understand what's really happening in real world terms.
So then really it's quite subjective is what you're trying to tell me. Um, what's going on, whether, somebody could walk away, make it look like a real clearing when it really is not a real clearing. And that's kind of, so it's really important to discern then the people you bring into your home for a clearing then.
I'm gonna throw something out there that I've said many times, and I still stand by it.
Yes.
Is that there's three types of psychics.
Okay.
Okay, the truly gifted, the truly deluded, and the truly full of bunk. Okay, and you know, when I say the truly deluded, I'm talking about people who either they have some ability, but they really don't have what I call mastery of it or control over it.
Right.
And so they get a little whiff of something and then boom, they're off running in a direction and they really don't know what they're doing, but they think that they're helping. Okay. So, you know, you have to go through that filtration process of determining, is this person grounded?
Right.
And unfortunately, I find a lot of people out there aren't truly able to be grounded enough to be able to do the work that is needed to be done. There's too many people who are off in the ethereal. Now, yeah, I've got this wallpaper behind me, but it's not talking about unicorns and rainbows and whatever else.
Right.
You know, I'm a very science-minded type of a person.
Okay. So I want to come back to the science of it, but before we do that, I want to talk about you and um, well, I kind of have a little bit of background of your past, knowing what your day job was. So how does somebody who was such a physical person in their day job become a psychic? And if it was a gift, like we mentioned the word gift, then can you tell us in your life where this gift started and what signs of it you experienced and how you shifted your career, if I may say, from what you were doing to what you're doing now?
Thank you. No, those are good questions. The first thing that I always say when people use the term, you know, it's a gift. I'm going to say to you, no, it's not a gift.
Right.
Everybody has it.
Right.
Okay. And the easiest way for me to describe that is that if I sat 10 people around in a circle and I gave each person a pencil and a pad of paper, and I said, draw me a picture of a house.
Right.
You're going to get all different styles of drawings. I mean, I'm going to draw you a box with a triangle on the top of it and a door, and there's your house. But you know, you might come along and say, okay, but you know what? Take a look at this. If you draw some lines back at a 45 and look how we can create it into a 3D object.
Right.
So it's understanding that you start with your base level of ability, and do you nurture it, foster it, educate yourself, work with it, etc. It's like everybody theoretically could be in good physical health, and maybe, you know, if they can't run a marathon, they could walk a marathon or whatever. But do they take the steps necessary to build up to doing that?
Right.
So I really want to preface it by saying that that's really important, because too many people think that it's this gift that is magically bestowed upon someone, when realistically we all have the ability. But what level of ability do we start with, and what do we take it to with training and practice?
With
Okay.
anything like
Um,
a musician, a singer, they all have
yeah.
start with, but
Yeah.
how they develop it results in where they can take it to.
Absolutely. I mean, I play guitar, right? And you know, but if I was to sit there and play next to, you know, some musicians that I really really admire, you know, Uli John Roth, Yngwie Malmsteen, even Eddie Van Halen, whatever. I mean, I'm going to look like a kindergarten kid plunking away,
Right.
right? So, but what has my dedication to that hobby? What level of commitment have I done? There's a fellow that I know, I'm very good friends with back east, Jacob Duraps, who he's 21 years old, and this kid can play guitar. I mean, he literally sounds like Van Halen.
Wow.
He is amazing. And he started when he was 15 playing guitar. So in 6 or 7 years or whatever, he's gone like fully to the max. He's incredible. But the fella plays 8, 9, 10 hours a day.
Right.
Right. So what level of commitment do you have to it? And that's his focus. Moving on to my personal experiences. Goes all the way back to when I was about 10 years old or so. Having premonition dreams was a very common occurrence for me to have premonition dreams. And I can, if I've told you this story before in the interview, I'm sorry, but the one that really rings true for me was the one where I would have been about 10 years old, 11 years old, and we lived in Burnaby, up by where Metrotown area is.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just come home from elementary school, and my sister had to go into Burnaby General Hospital and have routine gum surgery done. And I'll never forget, I came home and I'd been home about 20 minutes and the phone rings and it was the hospital. And all of a sudden I hear this yell from the kitchen, and we lived in a duplex, and my aunt and uncle lived on the other side. And my mom was freaking out, and I'm like, okay, all of a sudden, picture an instant energetic cyclone of chaos, right? You know, you just feel that like, oh my God, something's really chaotic here.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out of my bedroom and seeing my mom crying and hysterical, and my aunt came running over, heard her yell,
Mm-hmm.
and goes, "What's wrong?" Well, the doctor who was the, I guess we'll call it the surgeon or whatever, he called from the hospital and he said, "There's been post-operative complications and you need to get down to the hospital immediately. We don't expect your daughter to last the rest of the day."
Wow. Oh man.
Considering this was routine gum surgery, like, you know, this was a big deal. My father worked for BC Hydro downtown, so he was at work. My mom was too in hysterics to be able to drive. My aunt didn't know how to drive,
Oh,
and so we had to take a cab. And I remember getting in this taxi,
right.
and my mom was just bonkers, right? She just, you know, so hysterical about it. And I got in the back seat with my mom, and my aunt was up in the front. We started taking the back roads down through the neighborhood to get over to Willingdon and down Willingdon to Burnaby General. And all of a sudden, everything went flat. It just flatlined, calm.
You're 10
And I heard a voice.
and you're 10.
What's that? I was about 10 years old, but yeah.
Right.
So, so yeah, everything goes flatline, calm, and I hear a voice in my head, and it said, "Rick, tell your mother that Barbara is fine. When she gets to the hospital, Barbara will be sitting up in bed smiling. There's nothing wrong with her." Okay, what do I know? I'm you know, 10 years old or whatever. I'm just a little kid. So I remember tapping my mom, and she's like, "What?" And I said, "Now, of course, if you think, you know, in terms of a child, you know, hearing a voice, what do you automatically default to thinking? Well, you think you just heard from God, right?"
Yeah.
So I said, "You know, Mommy," I said, "I just spoke to God, and he told me that Barb's fine. When you get to the hospital, she's going to be sitting up in bed smiling. There's nothing wrong with her." And I'll never forget my mom chastising me and saying, "Be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. Just please be quiet."
Right.
Okay, fair enough. So I just went quiet. And within minutes, we were down to the hospital. And she gets out, and remember, she's crying. And she goes running into the hospital, and she was looking to find where her daughter was. And this doctor sees her and goes, "What's the problem?" And she goes, "Well, I just got a call that my daughter had gum surgery, and the doctor called and said that there's complications. She's not going to make it the rest of the day."
Right.
He goes, "What's the name?" He gives her the name, and he goes, "I just checked on her." He said, "Come with me." Takes my mom into the room. My sister's sitting up in bed smiling. There was nothing wrong with her. And as it turned out, the doctor that had called was an alcoholic and was drunk on the job.
Oh my God.
Well, my mom just about collapsed right there.
Right. Of course.
And she remembered everything I told her in the car, right? So, and my mom now is, she's 91. She'll be 92 coming up this next January. And we still talk about it. It's just like how she said that was just the most surreal experience.
Her.
Now, I'm going to tell you, as a 53-year-old and as a practicing medium, did I talk to God? No. I'm going to tell you that it was most likely a guide or a loved one that was coming in to help and calm things down.
So let's talk
Right?
about that a little bit then. As a child, you felt it was God, or maybe even had the knowing it was God. And as an adult and as a medium and a psychic, we now say it's a guide or a loved one or something. Now, how do you make that distinction? And as a child, were you right to think it was God? Rick? You froze on me again.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, you're back.
So your question was, you were asking, was it right as a child to think that it was God? Is that what you're asking?
Child, yeah, I tend to think as children we're much more aware than we are as adults, right? And
Mhm.
that
Absolutely.
we're in that knowing reality versus that intellectual reality. And so it makes me wonder that was it God that spoke to you, and now are you dismissing it as an adult and, you know, choosing for it to be
Yeah,
what I'm trying.
I would never dismiss it. I believe that in innocence comes a lot of lack of knowledge and experience, right? And so as a child, you're kind of in that innocent thing, and so again, let's go back to the phraseology of calling something demonic,
Right,
right? We're very much delineated in our cultures of black and white, good versus evil,
right,
right? You know, so God versus the devil, whatever. And I think that it's one of the things that I like to talk about is the aspect of if I was to go and take a Bic lighter
hmm,
and I was to go back in time, 100 years, and go back to the deepest, darkest jungles of the Amazon and flick the Bic,
yeah.
all of a sudden I would be the god of fire.
Right,
Okay.
right,
And so it's that whole thing of not understanding it. Well, this is just lighter fluid in the thing, and I just sparked it, right? So my position as a medium is that I think that with experience and having connected with my spirit guides and connected with other spirits on the other side, and this is my own beliefs. I am not one to sit there and think of God as an individual.
hmm,
I
absolutely,
believe in God energy.
yeah,
Okay. So
yeah,
I believe that everything is God.
right,
I am God. You are God. The trees are God. Everything is God because it's all that source energy,
hmm,
right? And so when you look at it from that perspective, we have to remove the persona aspect of it. And when you remove that persona, what remains is that, okay, there's this main energy field that we all live in and connect to. But what was communicating that message to me was not a sentient energy of quote unquote God,
yeah,
but would have been somebody that was, because here's the thing that needs to also be added to the story is that my sister, so my mom was married before and had 4 kids. Her husband was a lineman, and there was an accident on the job and he was electrocuted and killed.
wow,
So I've never sort of delved in to go, was that him coming through with that message? It just felt very comforting and very familiar. Like it was that thing of like, okay, here, it's going to be fine,
right,
right?
yeah.
So that's how I come at it. I don't necessarily think of it as being like a God. I think it was somebody on the other side who's connected as through my mediumship.
Of course, but what I was trying to really get to was the distinctions and how you would know the distinctions between one being and another form of being. As I guess there'd be levels of beings that could come to you with information, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, there's guides that I work with, which very much are uh, hierarchical, right? Like there's a hierarchy. There's sort of who has the more experience and knowledge, et cetera, that we deal with. My main guide that I work with, who helps me through day-to-day situations and whatever, is not on the same level as one of the other guides who's much higher. It has much more power and diversity. But I don't typically connect with that guide on a regular basis. That's only if there's major problems, major things going on, then I connect to that guide.
Right,
Otherwise, I have my one guide that works with me side by side.
right. So, okay, so tell me now, you had that one experience as a child and then you're here now. What happened in between there to build on these experiences? Were you like a guitar player practicing? Um, what were you doing? How did this happen?
Yeah, you know what? It's well, here's a real funny story, and it's somebody who's a non-believer watches this, they'll go, okay, now it makes sense. I always had my ability since childhood, but I actually suffered back in 2006. There was a major windstorm that came through Vancouver, and it took out Stanley Park and leveled areas with huge wind gusts. And that particular day that storm was happening, I was actually picking up my father from my mom and dad's place. And I was going to take him to meet up with my oldest brother and my mom, and the four of us were going to have lunch.
Okay.
And when I got out of my car and parked in front of their apartment complex, there were these small real estate signs that hang in front of condos and stuff. And two of them had blown off and were down by the front door area. So I'm like, okay, these things, if the gust catches it, it's going to hit something or somebody. So picked him up, put him into the lobby. Got my dad, came back down, got him in the car. And as I was walking around the car, I noticed I missed one that was on the grass 30 feet away from there. So I went running over.
Right.
And as I'm running, I'm bending down and I'm reaching to grab this thing quickly because the wind's blowing. And I did not see these 2-inch square steel post that this thing was hanging off of, and it's sort of shaped like a 7. And I drove my forehead right into the butt end of the steel post.
Right.
And I still, like, I almost get like a cold, like an ice bath when I remember it, because it's that shock feeling, right?
Yeah.
And I drove my head into it so hard that the doctor actually said, he said, you were actually what we would call out on your feet. Like initially you were still conscious, but you weren't there. And I can remember, I mean, I've got a martial arts background, and I can remember thinking in that moment it happened, my brain went into self-defense mode. And I'm thinking, somebody hit me with a bat or something, like who hit me?
Right.
And then I remember coming up and getting into a defensive pose, and then I looked around, and then boom, down I went.
Down, yeah.
And my dad was handicapped, so he couldn't come running over to help me. And I remember I was down on the ground for probably a good 20 seconds, got myself up, and I'm just like loopy. And so he saw me on the ground. He didn't see me hit my head. And so I go to get in the car. He goes, what the hell were you doing? And I'm going, I hit my head. I'm hurt bad. And he's like, okay, you know, just take a minute. So I took a minute, and I remember thinking, I need to get medical attention.
Right.
And so I called the drop-in clinic that was in the area. And there was like, probably, I think they said it was like a 90-minute or a 2-hour wait. And I'm like, I can't wait that long. I'm feeling like I'm going to be sick here. And so stupid. I mean, but you know what? You're in that headspace. My dad didn't really understand what really had happened. And I said, I'll just drive you down to the restaurant, and then I'm going to go home. So I drove him. Like, just, I mean, I probably would have been classified as impaired because I'm not fully there. Drove him to the restaurant, drove home, and then I went to bed. And a couple days later, I can remember my mom and dad and I were out. My mom was like, are you okay? And I'm like, nah, I'm still not feeling good. I got this pounding headache and whatever. And we went into this store, and there was a woman that I knew from an old office that I worked at. So I started chatting with her. Hey, how are you doing? And this woman knew my cousin who also worked at the office, whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, so, you know, so-and-so just, you know, you work with so-and-so. And she's like, no, she's retired. I'm like, what? And then I said, well, you know, my buddy, so-and-so, you're working with him. And no, they're not there anymore either. And I'm like, okay, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Because my short-term memory and long-term memory was really messed up.
I know.
And so we drove myself out to another clinic, and they booked me in right away for a CAT scan. They did the CAT scan, came back negative, no signs of anything major. And at the time, I was actually, I was driving the truck at that time, semis and what have you. And I was out in Ladner at Highway 17 and Ladner Trunk Road. And I pull up to the intersection, and all of a sudden, the worst case of vertigo, and everything just starts spinning.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, oh God. So I put it in neutral, put on the parking brake, put on the four ways, and I had to just sit there and wait for this to settle. And finally, after a couple of minutes, it settled, and then I got moving again. And this probably would have been about 2-3 weeks post having that CAT scan done.
Right.
And the specialist that I got referred to, I went back to him and said, I'm still having like memory issues. I'm having headaches and these different things. Booked me in for another CAT scan, which took, I think took about another 3 weeks or so to get me in there. And he goes, well, we found the problem. And I go, what? And he goes, well, you fractured your skull. And
Oh,
I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, he said, when we did the first CAT scan, because it was so soon after the injury, it was a hairline fracture. And so we actually now could see the calcification of the bone from it healing. And he said, you actually suffered a 3rd-degree concussion where you would have bruised the front of your brain. When you hit, the brain would have gone forward, and then it would have gone back and bruised the back of the brain as well. It was after that head injury that my psychic abilities literally went vertical.
wow.
My sensitivities, my abilities to pick up on stuff and having things happen was just exponential. And I've done research since, and there's a lot of talk about the pineal gland and head injury trauma that can trigger it.
So should I go bang my head
So,
into the wall right now? Would that help?
well, I think most of us want to on most days right now, but I wouldn't recommend it. It wasn't a pleasant way. And you know what? Even now, I mean, I still suffer. That was back in 2006, 14 years ago.
Right.
I still suffer post-concussion symptoms.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah. But okay, so you have this heightened awareness ever since that one incident.
Mhm.
And then what caused you to make a career out of this though? Because you were in your everyday regular day job, and then now you're
Yeah.
doing this. There must have been something that incited this in you.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I was getting messages nonstop. Like there was a lot of messages coming through for family, friends, and whatever. And I'm giving all these messages, and people were looking at me going, you know, the level of detail that I was bringing through on issues that I would have no knowledge of.
Right.
They're like, this is uncanny. You've got something going on here, obviously. And basically they said to me, they said, you need to start charging people for this.
Right.
And back to the whole charging thing, it was a real moral dilemma for me,
I can,
right? Like, it's like, but I have this ability to help people, and I have this ability to give a message. And for quite a long time, I actually did my readings at no charge. I would just do a reading for somebody. It was just no charge, just here to help.
yeah.
And then somebody said to me something that made a lot of sense, and that was energy for energy.
Right.
And so if you're coming to me for a reading, again, it's different than a clearing. And you're asking me to use my energy to bring through a message to give to you. It's realistically no different than if I'm working in a warehouse and somebody's paying me, you know, $20 an hour to move a box from this pallet to this pallet.
Right. Right.
It's just energy for energy, right?
And somebody once said to me, like, there's things that are seen, there's things that are unseen. Like, you know, we talk about frequency, for example, negative frequency and positive frequency. Well, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't have a value or an effect on you. You know, all the
Mm-hmm.
negative frequencies, you know, satellite and microwave and all these things. We can't see them, but they have an effect on us. And similarly, positive frequencies have positive effects on us, but they both have a value in that what they accomplish, and therefore also what you do should have a value in what you're accomplishing for the other person.
Yeah, it's and on the other side of things too is, you know, I mean, there's also, it's a great feeling when you've helped somebody, you know, like when I mean, I did a reading for somebody just recently here who it was kind of ironic, brought through a message for the person with some family issues, and the individual looked at me and said, have you spoken to my partner, you know, about family stuff, blah blah blah? I'm like, no. I mean, I haven't spoken to that person in weeks, and I've only met him the one time, and it wasn't a conversation piece. And I remember the person breaking into tears because the messages that were coming through were so powerful for their situation, what was going on in their lives. So, when you have those breakthroughs for people and that you're helping somebody out, yeah, I mean, I get $100 out of it, but I also get a really positive feeling that I've done something that's sort of put somebody onto a better path.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell us now about all the things you're doing right now. Are you still doing clearings for people?
Yeah, I mean, we've really changed. I mean, you notice I'm not wearing the scary shirt today. I did that specifically for you.
Oh,
Um,
when I saw that, I'm like, can we change your costume? Back when you were wearing that sweatshirt, black and green.
so yeah, Spirit BC, we still do a lot of clearings and stuff. Definitely changed how we go about it over the years. There's a lot less emphasis now. Like, I've downsized the group. At one point we had 8 or 10 team members, and it started becoming a bit of a gong show, trying to coordinate who's available, when you're available, matching it up with the client. And at the same time, it's also a lot of energy to bring into a place. And yeah, it was great having people there and having people setting up cameras and helping out and doing different things. But I've learned over the years now. I mean, Glenn Larson is a very dear friend of mine, and Glenn's like a part of my family. We work very well. He does psychic support for me when we're doing clearings. And him and I can come in and just sort of hit a place and get in, do what we need to do, and try and get it done in a manageable time period.
Right,
Without all of the paraphernalia.
right.
I'm less interested these days in getting recordings and video and all the rest of that. Been there, done that, right? And so yeah, there's some interesting stuff that you can try and film, but realistically, it's more about doing the service to help the client and not be in there till 3 a.m.
Right. That makes sense. Because after all, the whole idea is to get that clearing done for the client and ease their lives. Um, well,
Yeah.
well, back in the day, you used to use all kinds of different devices for the purpose of clearing these homes um, and now, so are you telling me you don't use any of these devices? It's strictly just energetic work?
So we still routinely use 3 devices. I don't think I'll ever stop using them. The first being a K2 meter. K2 meter is a very effective, it measures electromagnetic fields, but it has LED lights on it that illuminate. And it works very well when I'm communicating with a spirit and I know that I'm connected, and I'll get those lights to light up. I'll ask it, if it's a yes, light this up, boom, it'll light up. So it's a great way of demonstrating that connection
Right.
for those who are present to know, okay, this is what's going on. We still use an EMF detector, like a Gauss meter. And that's basically what we will do, is go through the house during the preliminary walkthrough, measuring fields. Where are we getting electromagnetic fields? And if we pick up on stuff, okay, we can relate that that's because there's a circuit breaker right there or whatever. Then what we will do is we will kill the circuit breaker. So there's 0 power to the house. We will have people turn off their cell phones, so there's no radio fields coming off of cell phones. And then we will get down to the task of doing the clearing. The third device that I will also use will be the ghost box or a spirit box, whatever you want to call it. It's just a hacked AM/FM radio that scrolls frequencies and creates frequency availability for spirit to come through and talk. Right. So
It's not something you open up and the ghost or spirit goes into and then you seal it up and
no crossing streams, right? No.
Okay. So you mentioned that you ask yes or no and then the device lights up. So how's that working? Is that is your energy causing it to light up or what?
Not mine. No, definitely not mine. It'll be the spirit that we're connecting to, or the entity that we're connecting to. It doesn't always do that. There are times where it doesn't communicate through that.
Right,
But I would say probably 75 to 85% range, they communicate through that very effectively.
right.
It's probably one of the most effective tools in the toolbox.
So it's my understanding that when you're in the spirit world, it's really difficult for someone in the spirit world to manipulate physicality. So aren't they, in a sense, manipulating your device when they can do that? And how are they able to do that then?
Well, again, a few things. One is that because we're talking about getting them to affect an energetic device versus moving a physical object. Moving a physical object takes immense amounts of energy.
Right.
Affecting an electronic component is easy peasy,
Oh,
right? Super easy. And especially when we're talking about an LED light,
right.
LEDs are extremely energy efficient, so it doesn't take a lot to make those illuminate. So it works very well as a tool for that.
Okay, wonderful. Um, well, I learned something. Okay, and so then when you give us an example maybe of a case that stood out in your mind as blow me away kind of thing, an incident that was so profound and so energetically revealing to you that you can share with us.
Yeah. Sure. Actually, on our, I've actually quit several years ago. I quit uploading a lot of video content to our YouTube channel for Spirit BC.
Right,
I just kind of, I just kind of did an assessment of why are we putting that there?
right,
What is the end result? Is the end result that we're putting it there for educational purposes? Or is it nothing more than entertainment for people who are wanting to watch a paranormal investigation TV show?
right,
And I kind of I came to the conclusion, I'm like, you know what? There's some stuff that honestly we've experienced on investigations and clearings that in my opinion, the general populace is um, not prepared to see. Like it would just freak people out too badly.
wow,
The other thing too is that it can also lead to people being um, bringing in the skeptics on a very heavy level.
yeah,
I'm always open to skeptics. I love skeptics. I mean, skeptics keep things real.
yeah,
Okay, it does. And so you'll never have somebody's a skeptic go, "Oh, I'm not talking to this person." No, let's engage.
yeah,
Whether at the end of that conversation the person is on the same page as me
yeah,
or not, so be it. But the issue that comes into play is that I didn't want to have it be a scenario where we were creating something that could appear to be so grandiose and off the chain bizarre that people will then start to go, this is just a load of hooey, right? And they're doing this for publicity and they're doing this for money. And so to me, it was one of those things like, well, if I don't post that, then you can't say that I'm doing this for sensationalism or for any of that stuff.
right,
Um, the case that I would say probably was a very real turning point in some of the experiences that we had on our investigations, and probably the last investigation we did where we had the full team was out in Langley Aldergrove, and a fellow came to see me for a reading, and I did the reading for him, and he was exceptionally pleased with the session. And he said, "Okay, I know you're the guy for what I need." And I'm like, I'm going, "What are you talking about?"
right,
He goes, "I've got major problems happening in my house." And he said to me that he was very science minded, and he is very science minded, very intelligent man. And when we basically sat down and sort of went over a few things, I said, "Okay, I'll come out and I'll do an investigation." And he told us a story where he said that he woke up in bed
mhm,
and he was resting on his forearms here, sort of propping himself up in bed. And he said it was like something grabbed his face and snapped his neck right over backwards.
Oh my God.
and it landed up breaking his neck. And I mean, we're talking like a U-shaped. And he actually had to have emergency surgery. You could see the scar in his throat where they actually had to go in and do an emergency surgery on his vertebrae and stuff. And he mentioned the surgeon's name that did the surgery. And uh, I said my dad was handicapped, and when he mentioned the surgeon's name, I'm okay. I know who this doctor is. He's a very reputable doctor and a
Right.
very good neurosurgeon. And long and short of it was that he told the doctor, he said, you know, this is what happened. He goes, well, were you cliff diving? Do you have a motorcycle accident? What happened? He goes, no, I woke up in bed and something snapped my neck backwards. The surgeon didn't believe him.
Right.
Said, okay, that's a load of BS. That can't happen, right? Like, there's no way that would
Yeah.
something could snap you back like that. Long and short of it is, he didn't have any other accidents, and so this is what happened. We went out to the residence, and we had the craziest phenomena going on. It was just off the chain. Like, the place was just vibrating with energy.
Wow.
And it actually took 4 times to go back over probably about a 3-month period to be able to finally get it fully cleared out.
Wow.
And it took everything that I had to do it. It was one of the most intense experiences. There's a video that is on our Spirit BC YouTube channel where you'll see Glenn and I were in the master bedroom at this home, and you'll see an orb float across the screen, and it goes from left stage to right, and you can see all of a sudden it looks like it goes into me,
Right.
and then all of a sudden I describe this crippling pain in my arm, and then it got worse and worse, and then you'll actually see the pain get so strong that my knee buckles,
Right.
and that's how this entity was attacking, right? There's video. I mean, I still have it somewhere on my SD card somewhere, but
Yeah.
there was video where we were using that K2 meter, and I was pushing energy and moving from, getting it from this big home into one area that I could then do what I need to do. And fascinating video being filmed by a third team member
Right.
who was standing back filming, and you could see me working energetically and pushing. And I'm describing this entity that I have in front of me that I'm essentially, moving along. Glenn would be 5-6 feet ahead of me, and the K2 meter would be blank, nothing happening. And as we move forward, boom, it was going full bars. Glenn would move back, it would stop. We'd keep moving, would hit again, full bars. And it was a really strong indicator that I was actually indeed moving this energy field with this entity in it. Very dark spirit. Again, it comes back to not demonic. It was an entity. Can I describe to you what it is or was, or give it a name? No. I can tell you that it was not of this world.
Right.
It was otherworldly. It wasn't anything that I'd ever seen before.
It wasn't,
But yeah, there was multiple.
there was more than one?
What was that?
There was more than one, you said?
Yeah, there was multiple. Yeah. So the first night I was able to clear one out.
Right.
But again, more were still there, came back. And so it took 4 times. And after the 4th time, we finally got it cleared out. And this client lived essentially happily ever after since that the energy was cleared from the property.
Wow. And so that person continues to live in that property and it's clear now?
Yeah. And
Wow.
again, once it's cleared, you don't have any reason to feel fearful or vacate or any of that stuff.
Right.
But that was one of the most challenging for me to clear, because it was waves of these entities coming through that we had to clear out.
Okay, so we won't talk about this one anymore because just the thoughts of it are scaring me, let alone me watching any video to do.
Let me go put that shirt on here.
Let's talk about nicer, friendlier experiences where you go into a home and it's really just a family member or somebody who was in the house beforehand that's able to communicate something that maybe they're trying to communicate, and it's just as simple as that. Please tell me there's those situations too.
There is, and you know what? A case that comes to mind would have been 2 years ago. I guess 3 years coming here in October. I did an investigation out in Cloverdale.
Right.
I'm good friends with Karen Daniels and St. Thomas with Jared in the morning. And so I've been on their show a few times, and we've talked about all the
Yeah.
we'll call it the oogly boogly spirit stuff. And so they came up with this idea. They have a segment called Around. And so once a month they would go to a different like a contest winner's home and stay the night, and then do the live show in the morning at their home. And a lot of fun to have people submit if they're having paranormal activity in their homes, to have me come out with them and do the clearing.
Right.
And so we landed up. It was a great investigation, and it was really cool because country singer Sean Austin was there, and it was having him experience this, and he was kind of like, "Oh my goodness," because they were all experiencing what was happening. Karen, God bless her, I love her. She's fully in, like, she's a full-on believer. And Clay, he has to bring the balance to the equation and be sort of skeptical. But he's like, I can't, say what it is or isn't. He goes, there's definitely but what there was an older man, which he was, if memory serves now, he was the property linked to property. And there was also a little girl.
Wow.
And it was amazing because when I was doing the session, I always go into these scenarios cold. I don't want to know any details, because I want to hit what I'm hitting. And when I started bringing through the message of this little girl, the homeowner, the wife, she broke into tears.
Oh no.
And she kept feeling that there was this little girl, is what she kept feeling, and she couldn't understand why. And the fact that I brought through this little girl and this message or whatever, it was amazing. It was beautiful. It was a really positive thing, and we were able to bring closure to both spirits as well as to the family that was living there as well.
Wow. Wow. See, that's a nice story. Something
And they all live happily ever after.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing those things. So you still do readings, and how does somebody reach you if they want to do a reading with you? You can and clearing as well. And maybe we can do like a Zoom event with you as well one of these days.
Yeah. I as far as the readings goes, I have my old website. The platform needed to be updated. So we have a landing page there right now. So the web designer is doing a new website. It's psychicreadingsbyrich.com, and you can email me, richard@psychicreadingsbyrich.com, and we can book in. Obviously, with COVID, I'm only doing Skype sessions or Zoom. It's $100 for an hour for the session.
Right.
And I've done my best to keep the prices reasonable as well. I've never changed my prices since I've started.
Right.
And investigation-wise, it's rick@spiritbc.net, and they can email me through that if they're looking for answers on something that may be happening in their home. Again, there's no charge for us coming out and doing that. We will do a qualifying phone call first to sort of get an idea what's happening. Because we do encounter some people who aren't fully balanced, and so we have to rule that out as well, right? Whether or not it's somebody who's just experiencing some sort of mental health issues or substance abuse issues or whatever. So we screen that out, and then if it appears to be straightforward, we got something happening other than that, then we go and we'll do the work.
Well, it was lovely reconnecting with you, Rick, and getting an update on what you've been up to. I'm sort of
Thanks,
exhausted
Jarvis.
with questions. My pleasure. It's always a pleasure communicating with you. It's like, friends. We don't talk for a long time, but whenever we reconnect, we're always reconnected.
Yeah, thank you. I feel the same way. It's, you know, you don't miss the a step in reconnecting, so it's great. And it's I'm wishing you well in your ventures with your website and how your business is going as well.
As well, and we'll promote you, and we'd love to do like maybe, are you still doing courses or anything like that? Will you do courses?
You know what? I haven't done a paranormal 101 course now for a few years. It's a time issue for me. I've got a new business which is taking a huge amount of my time called Goes to 11, goes to 11.ca. And so there's all different levels of stuff that's going into that. It's spotlighting hobbies, activities, products and stuff that people love to do.
It,
And so there's a huge amount of time goes into that. So
it's interesting how the word ghost happens to be in there.
goes. I not and you know what's hilarious? It drives me nuts because whenever I do not ghost to 11, I've had people actually think that's what I'm saying. Ghost to 11? No, goes to 11. GOESTO 11.ca. The funniest part is that when the videos that we film for our YouTube channel and our website, I do closed captioning for. Now, YouTube has an algorithm which takes about 24 hours for that video after it's been loaded to create a script.
Right.
And I'll go in and edit little tweaks. And I would say probably 7 times out of 10, when I say, hey, everybody, Rick Pedersen goes to 11 Media, it'll be, hey, Rick Pedersen goes to 11. And I'm like, stop it now.
Totally know it's your guy.
I can't get away from it.
It's your guy. It's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, get back to the other stuff, right? So, but you know what? I would entertain doing if there was enough interest. I would be interested in doing another paranormal 101 course again. They were fun. It was great teaching that stuff to people, and I think people really enjoyed it. I think the one that was the most memorable for a lot of people was obviously the cemetery one was great, but when we did the course where I took 2,000 students, we went to the Vancouver Orpheum. That was amazing.
Wow. What kind of experiences did you have there?
Oh, tons,
Ser-
tons. That place has got so much energy going on. I mean, what was really cool was one of the students who I've since over the years become very good friends with, Jessica. I told everybody, I said, just start taking photos. And I taught them how to do photos so they're not kicking up dust, whatever. And she took a photo and it was clear across the theater on the bottom level. And when she got home and she, uploaded it to her computer, she sent it to me. She goes, look at this. And it was a woman in full period costume standing at the door by the exit sign. And you could see her clear as a bell. You could see the period costume, everything.
Wow.
And everybody was just like, oh my God. And there's lots of really cool spirit photos. There was another one that says somebody got upstairs by on the second floor where the green room was, of a male spirit, older male, looked like it was from like around the 1930s, 1940s. It was a really good photo as well, and right in the doorway, right?
You'll
So
have to share.
lots of interesting stuff. I mean, that place is loaded.
You'll have to share those with me. Those I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah, I'll dig them up. I've got them somewhere here. There's a real funny video if people want to have a good laugh. If you go onto the Spirit BC Facebook page under our video section, it was done at the Orpheum, and I was with the manager of the Orpheum, and we're walking through, and there was a door, and remember it's dark, right? We're working with low level light and whatever. And I go to open the door, and it bashes right into me. But all you see in this video clip is me walking towards it, and it bang! It's worth a laugh.
More brain activity.
Fortunately, it didn't hit my head. Thank goodness.
Good. Okay, Rick, thank you so much. It was a pleasure and an honor once again.
Thanks, Shyrose. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Much appreciated. And if you need anything, give me a shout.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.